Ganya Gana Gocha Goloruharam Goranga Guritam Gopyara Kopa Briksham Gopala Gadaratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namani Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachiya Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Hemona Gauranga Hridaya Dariya Bola Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangira Namure Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Prana Re Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema-bhakti-candrika Parama-pumarta Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madhgavirapi Gopala Srikriya Kripaya Jari Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Rishayustad Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunathapta Brajabala Bapahimam Vanchakalpatarubhishcha Kripa Sindhubhya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nice to see Bonnie here today also. And looks like she's also bringing along Tarun Krishna Prabhu and Lord Jagannath. It's really good. It's been a long time since we saw you, Bonnie. Spider Cherry. Cool, man. Hare Krishna. So we're continuing with our series on Prema-bhakti-candrika. We're still on the fifth song and the eighth stanza of the fifth song. That fifth song is called Raganuga Bhakti Riti, a glimpse into the path of Raganuga Bhakti. And this is our ninth session in Siddha Pranali and the Holy Name. So let's go ahead and start with what we do every day, every session, and that's these prayers by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur to Narottam Das Thakur. Shri Krishna Namamrita Vaishivaktra Chandra Prabhadvasta Tamo Bharaya Gauranga Deva Anucharaya Namo Namah Shila Narottamaya. Again and again I offer my obeisances unto Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He is indeed a true follower of Lord Gauranga Dev. The nectarian shower of the holy name radiating from the moon of his mouth destroys the darkness of ignorance. It's a beautiful verse. This varshi, this downpour of rain, purifies the heart. When there's a rain, you go outside after a rain, the air is very fresh and it's very nice. It makes everything very clear. So similarly, from this particular rainfall, which comes from the moon-like mouth of Narottam Das Thakur, all the different subtle principles of bhakti become very clear. So we offer obeisances, Namo Namaha, Srila Narottamaya, again and again to Srila Narottam Das Thakur, as we commented in our first session, I think, on Prema-bhakti-candrika. There was one sadhu we heard about in Navadvip, who's very popular pracharak or speaker, and hundreds of people were coming regularly to his talks. And he commented once that everyone, all Gaudiya Vaishnavas, when they get up in the morning, they should fall down and offer obeisances to Narottam Das Thakur, because what he's given is so very, very special and so significant. So let's look at this verse that we've been going over. Yugala charana sevi nirantara e bhave anuragai taki bashadoy shadane bhavi bhajaha sudadehe pabataha ragapatira e sevupai. I will constantly desire to serve the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna with loving attachment. Whatever I contemplate during the practice of devotional service will certainly be achieved upon perfection in a spiritual body. This is a method on the path of attachment. So as we've been speaking about, we've been talking about this process of siddha and Rikadas Bhav, and how we should look at this. And we shouldn't just look at it through a sectarian lens that we're followers of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and therefore only we're right, but we should follow the mood of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and our acharyas, that we're Rupanugas. And we want to know what is a version of the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You can't separate Srila Bhaktisiddhanta or Srila Prabhupada from Srila Rupa Goswami and the other Sad Goswamis. What they came to give us is our line. And sometimes there may be some particular aspects of things which are emphasized for a particular time, place, and circumstance, even by Srila Prabhupada or by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. But our main teachings are teachings of our Goswami. So as we've been commenting, this line, Saranabhavi Bijaha Siddhadehe Pabe Taha, some people, actually quite a few people, they cite this as being evidence of the system of Siddha Pranali. And so we've been doing an exploration. We started off going through different Puranas and different Vedic literatures. What is the bhajan pranali, or the system of bhajan in the age of Kali? And again and again and again and again, we've been finding that Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam kolo nasteva, 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 gatiranyata. That the holy name is everything, and nasteva, 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 3 times. There's no other process, no other process, no other process. There's nowhere in Shastra where Siddha Pranali is described. Siddha Pranali is given by some of our acharyas. We mentioned Narottam Das Thakur himself had that, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur had that. It's one particular line of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, but it's not the general line. The general line is that line which simply takes shelter of the holy name. And we've been, in our exploration also, we've been looking something at the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which are basic construction elements for building the philosophy of yoga, whether that's bhakti yoga or hatha yoga, whatever. These are the basic principles. So it begins by describing yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. It defines yoga as when you calm the mind down from going here and there. And we spoke something about the Vyasadeva Tika commentary on the first verse of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which speaks about 5 different levels of the mind field. Let's look at those again. This is a little bit of a review, but it's going to bring us to where we're discussing today. So kshipta mudha, vikshipta ekagra nirudha. Kshipta means the beginning of the mind is very, very disturbed, very distracted. And we spoke something about that in our last two sessions about inattentiveness. Mudha means that mind which is in a mode of ignorance, which is just stupefied and dumb. Vikshipta means which is distracted. It's very passionate, very active mind. Ekagra is where bhajan really begins, where yoga really begins, when the mind is sattvic and is one-pointed. And then the rudha is real bhajan. And as we define from Hari Bhakti Vilas and the Gaur Govinda Smarna Archana Padati, Manoma Jestitom mantra majestitam manaha mano mantra samayutam etadi japa lakshanam. That this is the nature of japa, that our mind should become one with the mantra. The mantra should become one with the mind should become one with the mantra. That's niruddha. This is the definition of yoga. Yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. This yoga really means niruddha, nirodha, that we're completely, totally absorbed in the object of our meditation. And that nirodha is kirtaniya sadahari. That's another way to put it. That nirodha means that the mind is totally controlled, totally absorbed in the object of meditation. Well, this is what Mahaprabhu says. Kirtaniya sadahari. We should always be absorbed in the holy name. But there's a problem, and our problem is inattentiveness, which arises from aham mama bhav, or ahamta and mamata. Ahamta means self-identification, that I identify myself as a man, as a woman, as American, as Hungarian or Indian. And mamata, this belongs to me. This is my car. This is my children. This is my wife, my husband. All of these things gradually disappear through development of bhakti. And we spoke something about that from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Mundane conditioned life is based all about ahamta and mamata, identifying myself with the body and having this attitude of possessiveness and concern with other persons around us. So we also spoke about chitta, or consciousness, in our discussion about distraction and about becoming focused. And the nature, according to Sridhar Swami in his Bhavarta Deepika commentary on the third canto of the Bhagavatam, he says that chitta is reflective by nature. Let's see. Bhagavad Bimba Grahidvam. Bimba means a reflection, and this Grahidvam, it grabs. So Bhagavad Bimba Grahidvam, this is the nature of the chitta, or the consciousness. It reflects what we have around us. So we want to make our consciousness one with the holy name. That's our process, kirtaniya sadahari. But how do we do that? How do we overcome this ahamta and mamata? And that's in this inattentiveness. This is what we want to speak something about today, because in the Yoga Sutras, again, we touched a little bit on the first two verses again, just now in a review. The third verse speaks about siddha pranala, siddha deha, tadadrastu, surupe vastanam. That when we come to this point of niruddha, then we become situated in our sarup vastu, our spiritual body. So this is the real deal. This is what the Krishna conscious movement is really about. It's not just about an institution, or even it's not just about the rules of Vaidhi Bhakti, but it's really about us becoming realized in our siddha deha, in our spiritual body. But this problem is there of inattentiveness. And we heard something about that from the Yoga Sutras, how there's 9 different aspects of inattention. And I'd like to look at that again. Let's see, this is an interesting point from Yoga Sutras here. And the comment on that So 9 different aspects of inattention. We spoke about that in a previous session, Vyadi, Sthanya, Sangsaya, Pramada, etc. You can see here on the board. And then the next verse describes dukkha, dharmanasya, angam ejayatva swasa, prasvasaha, vikshepa, sahabhuvaha. That there's something that goes along with those distractions. Their grief, dukh, unhappiness, despondency, dharmanasya, the body, angamajayatva, shaking, irregular breathing. This is something which comes along with it. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is described by Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan as the yoga of lamentation. And that yoga of lamentation has a special significance for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. That's why it's Baladev's commentary. And these symptoms that come along with inattentiveness, and as Leela Purushottam Prabhu was sweetly pointing out in the last session, he's expressing my situation, that my gosh, it's really a mirror for my consciousness. It's a wake-up call, I think is what you said, for our situation. But so what do we do? What do we do? I'm so bad. I'm just so bad that I'm always being inattentive in my japa. I'm not coming to this point. So the first canto, first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita teaches us that we accept it. That we accept this yoga of lamentation. Yoga means something by which we connect with the Lord. And this is discussed by Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, where he says he describes 3 different causes of humility: dukkha, trasa, parada, jaya, norjitam, dudinata. These are 3 causes of humility. So these same 3 causes of humility, let's look back up here. This is what happens. Grief, despondency, trembling of the body, irregular breathing. Dukkha is the first one. So these 3 causes of humility are also the same, basically the same things, the same results of inattentive chanting. So there's a connection. And the connection comes when we were honest and we embrace our fallen condition. And we say, yes, that's what I am. We don't try to pretend. And when we do that, dukkha, we embrace our unhappiness. Trasa padrar, we embrace. Trasa means that some fear that I'm fallen, I'm not chanting properly. Aparada adyar, that I've committed some offense to this. Anorjitam tudinata. These are 3 things that give rise to humility. But when we're trying to just put on a show, as sometimes devotees say, fake it until you make it. But the problem is that if you fake it, you're not going to make it. And there is some truth to that we continue, no matter what, we continue chanting. And in one sense, you can say that's faking it. But we require some sincerity. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we heard in our last session from Harinam Chintamani, chapter 12, what to do when this inattentiveness comes. And he recommends one of the most important things, which he stresses again and again, is sadhu sangha. That we should go and associate with advanced Vaishnavas who have some taste for the holy name. And in that association, then we'll be able to achieve perfection. We'll be able to come to this point of Nirodha. Mano madhye stito mantra madhye sitam, where our mantra and the mind will become one. This is Nirodha, according to the Yoga Sutras. And it's the same thing spoken about basically in Hari Bhakti Vilas and in Jan Chandra Swami's Gaur Govinda Smarna Archana Padati. So this chanting is everything. But we want to come to the point of Nirodha, where we're always chanting. But how do we do that? So today we'd like to speak something in this 9th session about the connection between humility, Nama-bhajana, and Siddha Pranali. Our Siddha Pranali begins, we can say, with our Sambandha Acharya. Our Sambandha Acharya is Srila Sanatana Goswami, the author of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And I'd like to share with you a few words from a lecture that was given in 1927 in Kashi during installation of a Gauranga Mahaprabhu deity at the Sanatan Gaudiya Mat. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta spoke there. He said that today we're present at Varanasi Chaitra. Here, Sri Gaurasundar taught Sanatan Dharma to Sanatan Prabhu, the spiritual master of Rupa Goswami Prabhu, our previous Acharya. And he says the Acharya for Sambandha Gyan, he's speaking about Sanatan Goswami. He's the Acharya for Sambandha Gyan. What is Sambandha Gyan? Sambandha Gyan means knowledge or understanding of my connection with the Lord. So he says an interesting sentence I just wanted to throw in, I like very much, is only those who follow Rupa are eligible to hear about the devotional service performed by the gopis. That's another subject, but very fascinating topic. And he goes on, Sanatana Goswami is a Sambandha Gyanacharya. He's vividly described Sambandha Gyan in his Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And he says, if we wish to take shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, we have no alternative but to take shelter of the Lord's devotees. We have to do that. And we have no other choice. So Sanatana Goswami is the Acharya of Sambandha Gyan, understanding our constitutional position. And what is the words of Sanatana Goswami when he first met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Can anyone say? It was what is it?
Ami.
He said, K-Ami, who am I? I don't understand who I am. This is Sanatana Goswami, our Acharya of Sambandha, our connection with the Lord. And this is a position of humility. So we want to, he's saying, K-Ami, who am I? Well, that's the big question, right? We want to know, who am I? What is my swarup in the spiritual world? That's our discussion. And that's the first thing that Sanatana Goswami said to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Who am I? It's a very, very important discussion. He's the Acharya in this. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in this lecture, he explained that Sanatana Goswami is the Acharya of Sambandha, and he's described Sambandha Gyan in his Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Now, we've gone over some of these verses in our previous sessions, but they're very, very important verses. They're found in the third section, the third canto of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Yena sardarana sakta dhamma buddhi sadatmani sarva karsan vite pisyad buddhais tad dainyam isyate. So now we heard about this dainya. This dainya comes when we embrace, when we practice this yoga of lamentation, we embrace the miserable situation that we're in. We embrace our dukkha, our unhappiness. So this dainya is defined here as a state that someone thinks himself exceptionally incapable and low, even if they're endowed with all excellent qualities, even though they may know Sanskrit, they may know shlokas, they may be a great kirtaniya, they may be a fantastic cook, the most chaste wife, a husband who takes care of the family in such a good way, a temple president, a GBC, whatever they may be, they should have this understanding that I'm very, very fallen and low. I look in the world sometimes today, I think of Narad Muni, how Narad Muni was interested in politics. Not that we want to encourage everybody to be interested in that, but Narad Muni kept track of politics. My Guru Maharaj also was instructed by Srila Prabhupada to read the newspaper regularly. And I see different persons, and they're all non-devotees, and you can say it's wet stool or dry stool, but for me, when I see someone has some humility, even it may not be genuine, but at least they're not demanding respect, that gives some inspiration to the heart. And we see people appreciate that. So Sanatana Goswami goes on to explain that we should cultivate humility, or dainya, in three different ways. Yaya, Vachayaya, Dainyam, Matya, Chastaryam, Eti Tat. tam yatnena bhajed vidvams tad virudhani vajayet. We cultivate it through our vacha, ihaya. We cultivate it through our speech and through our behavior and through our mind. And if we cultivate humility in these three ways, then we become fixed in humility. And he says, goes on that anything that which is virudha or opposed to that thing, varjayat, we should reject. We should avoid that thing. Anything which is contrary to that principle of humility. Therefore, Vaishnava Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he sings that that I reject the mentality. What is it? Guru Abhimana Tyaji. He said, I give up the mentality, I reject the mentality that I'm a guru, because that's very detrimental to humility to pronounce that I'm a guru. But at the same time, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta revealed in one lecture that accepting the post of guru, when your guru wants you to do that, that's real humility. So it's not such a simplistic thing that real humility means, Prabhu, you sleep on the floor and you only dress in rags. And no, Srila Prabhupada wore nice silk clothes many times. And when he arrived, I think it was in Australia, when he arrived at a program in a fancy Rolls-Royce car, they questioned him. They said, Swami, you're supposed to be a renunciate and you're arriving in a Rolls-Royce car. And Prabhupada said, no, this is not good enough. It should be gold-plated. So it's not that the Vaishnavas reject those things, but they accept real humility means accept everything for the service of Guru and Krishna. And real dainya, real humility appears with prema. Dainyam tu paramam premna. Paripakena janyate tasam gokulanadinam eva Krishna viyogataha. The real dainya means Krishna prem. That's when real humility reaches its zenith or its topmost point. An example is the Gokula Narinam, the gopis of Braj, Eva Krishna Viyogataha. Very significant. This is our Siddha Pranali line. Our Siddha Pranali line is to understand the mood of the gopis. Excuse me. And the gopis, when they're in separation from Krishna, and to try to understand that mood. And what is the nature of that mood? It's dainya. This is the topmost dainya when the gopis are feeling separation from Krishna. So that's our Siddha Pranali mantra. Therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta spoke like that our Siddha Pranali mantra is Chanadapi Sunichena. And what does that mean? That's our discussion for today. Just give me a few seconds while I run in the other room and grab a cough syrup. I'm just going to be right back. Excuse me. I meant to cough and drop. So these two things, they're in cause and effect with each other. Humility and prema. You can't separate the two. Paripakena dainyasya prema jasram vitanyate parasparam tayor ittam karya karana tekshate. That when humility or dainya becomes fully mature, then prema jasram vitanyate. That prema goes ajashram. It has no limit, that prema. And so he says that we see parasparam. There's some back and forth between prema and humility. There's a strong connection between the two. When someone comes to that level of prema, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, then we understand what is our swarup. So again, Sridhar Swami Bhavarta Deepika, a few minutes ago, we gave this definition, Bhagavad Bimba Grahitvam, that the nature of the chitta is that it's reflected, the nature of consciousness. Chitta is the most subtle element of our antakarana, or our internal senses. So that chitta is reflective. And when our chitta, we develop humility and we serve Guru and Guranga in that way, then that reflects the prema that they have. Now, when we speak about the Siddha Pranali mantra, we can also cite another description of Siddha Pranali, a clear description of Siddha Pranali, perhaps the most clear description of Siddha Pranali in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and that's found in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, in the Madhya Lila chapter 23, in a description by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prabhu Bola, he said, Kahilana e Mahamantra. He said, this is the Mahamantra. The previous verse gives the whole Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Iha japa, giye sabe koriya nirbanda. That you should constantly chant this holy name, koriya nirbanda, according to a prescribed number of rounds every day. And then he says, Iha hoite sarva siddhi hoibe sabar. That this mantra, by chanting this mantra, sarva siddhi, you're going to get everything, all siddhi. This is Siddha Pranali. Sarvakshana bola iti vidi nahi ar. Always chant. There's no other prescription. Iti vidi nahi ar. There's no other prescription in Kali Yuga. Although sometimes people think that there's some other system, there's some other process. We don't mind. Some Vaishnavas have some other different thoughts, but this is a process given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So nice to see Ujjvala Rasiga part of this Sangha today too, and the way we've been missing you. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us, he's Krishna himself coming to teach us how to understand our Siddha Deha. And he's doing that through Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. And they're teaching us how to approach the Lord. Although they're the most glorious persons, they're approaching in a very, very humble way. We often sing this song, Gauranga Karuna Koro. I'd like to share with you what I feel is the inspiration for that song. It's some verses in Madhya Lila chapter 1 of Chaitanya Charitamrita, which describe the meeting of Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Well, let's just go through that a little bit. This is text 185. Dui gucha trine dunhe dashane dharina gadivastra bhandi bhade pade dandavadhana. That when these two brothers came before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, each one of them, they put a cloth around their neck, which is a sign of humility. The Paka Brahmins, they'll wear a cloth on one shoulder. And sometimes Vaishnavas do. They put a cloth around their neck, and they fell down like rods with straw in their teeth. In this song, Gauranga Karuna Koro, it's described, Dante Trinadori Gorodaki He Tomar. That this is how I'm calling out to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Dante Trina, with straw in my teeth. Daki He Tomar, I'm calling out. Kripa Kori Esho Amar Hridaya Mandiri. That please come and live in the temple of my heart. So when we approach the Lord in a mute humility, this Trinadapi Sanichena, this is our Siddha Pranali mantra. Because by coming before the Lord in a humble way like this, our consciousness becomes a chitta. Our consciousness becomes a bimba, becomes a mirror which can reflect the love of the Brijbasis, the love of our acharyas. And then at that time, Hridaya Mandire, we make a temple in the heart. Mano madhye stito mantra, mantra mandami stitam manaha. The mantra and the mind become one. And then at that time, we build a temple in the heart. We were listening this morning to Remembrance of Srila Prabhupada, spoken by his dear daughter and our dear friend Rukmini. And she was commenting how, she's telling a story how on 26 Second Avenue, a group of them came before Srila Prabhupada one day. She was 16 years old at that time. And Prabhupada was telling him, I want each one of you to go and open a temple. Each one of you should open temples. And then she spoke up. She said, Srila Prabhupada, even the girls? Prabhupada started laughing. Prabhupada said, yes, even the girls, everyone. So we should all open a temple. Well, that may sound like a very difficult thing. You're not like Jai Gaur, who's a construction person. You don't know what to do. But Hridaya Mandire, at least we should construct a temple in our heart. And if we don't make a temple in our heart, what's the value of making an external temple out of bricks and mortar? Simply, sadly, many times it just becomes a place for quarrel, disagreements. It becomes a place of anxiety with a lot of overhead and things. But if our heart is pure, if we make our heart into a temple, then everything becomes beautiful. So Rupa and Sanatana Goswami were the chief minister, prime minister for Nawab Hussain Shah. They were the biggest persons in the country. And when they came before Mahaprabhu, they said, Nicha jati, Nicha sange kori, Nicha kaj, tomara agriti prabhu kahite basi laj. That we're Nicha jati. Our jati, our family line is Nicha. It's very, very fallen. Nicha sange. Our association, the sangha that we're staying in, is very, very fallen. Nicha kaj. We're doing the most fallen, abominable type of work. And therefore, we don't know. We can't introduce ourselves to you because this is all that I have. When you go to meet someone, they say, who are you? And someone says, well, my name is Bonnie, and I'm a PhD student in forensics or this or that. We introduce ourselves by our education. We introduce ourselves by our family, by different bodily things, which we think are our qualification. But they're saying, Nicha jati, Nicha sange, kori, Nicha kaj. We don't have a good family. We don't have good association. We don't have any good work. We don't have anything. Kahite basi laj. So we're just coming before you. We feel ashamed in coming before you. So when we come before the Lord in a clean slate like that, as Christ said in the Bible, that you empty your cup and I'll fill you. When we empty our cup in that way, then we can really begin to approach the Lord. And then there's a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which Rupa and Sanatana speak, which is also found in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. A very beautiful verse. Matulyo nasti papatma naparadi chakaschana parihare pilajja mekim bhuvi purushottama. My dear Lord, my dear Purushottam, matulyo nasti papatma. There's nobody as fallen as me. Gauranga Karuna Koro, Amidina Hina Jana, Mosamo Patita Prabhu Nahi Tribhuvani. In all the three worlds, the song we often sing describes it, that you won't find anybody as fallen as me. There's Nasti Papatma, there's nobody as sinful as myself. Naparadi Chakashchana, there's nobody who's such an offender as myself. Parihare Pilajame, we're ashamed to even come and try to ask for forgiveness. How do you go to a family if you raped and killed their 12-year-old daughter? How do you go to them and say, look, I'm really sorry, please forgive me? How do you do that when you've committed some horrible crime? And this is a mood of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. They're not just saying this from the lips. Matulyo nasti papa but naparadi jakashana. They really feel that. So understanding how offensive I am and how much sin I have, I'm ashamed to even come before you. So what is it? What is the answer then to that situation? All that we can do is we can own it. We can hold it close to ourselves. So that Rupa and Sanatan go on in the next verse. And they say, Patita Pavana Hetu Tamara Avatar. This is a solution. This is why you came. Hetu means the cause, the purpose for coming. You came, Tomara Avatar, Patita Pavan, to deliver the most fallen. And if you look at us, here we are. Ami Bhai Jagate Patita Nahiyar. There's nobody as fallen as us. So you have to come to us first. Huh? If you don't come to us first, huh? Then how? Then your description of yourself as being Patita Pavan, it's just some words, and we'll have to change that description. And then Rupa and Sanatan, they speak about Jagai and Madhya. They say, they thought to themselves, perhaps, if we tell Mahaprabhu that we're the most fallen persons in all the three worlds, then he's going to say, well, that's actually not true. You should look at the history, Navadvip, there's two brothers, Jagai and Madhya. And Rupa and Sanatan said, no, we know about those guys. Jagai and Madhya dui korile udar. Tahan udariti shama nahila tomar. But there was no shama, it wasn't a hard job for you to deliver Jagai and Madai. But to deliver us, that's a very, very difficult thing. Jagai and Madai, they never served low-class persons. And the only fault that they had was they were addicted to sinful activities. He says, but papi rasi dahe namabhase tomar. Just even namabhas will destroy all the sinful activities. And then Rupa and Sanatan, they say it's such a beautiful, refreshing thing to hear. Just like the shower of rain, when it comes down, it makes it everything clear and fresh. Jagai Madhe hoite koti koti gun. Adama patita papi ami duijan. We're millions, koti koti, millions and millions of times inferior, more degraded, more sinful than Jagai and Madai. This is our Siddha Pranali mantra. And this is why Sanatana Goswami is our Sambandha Acharya. And he begins his connection with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by asking this question. Keami, who am I? Huh? I have no qualification whatsoever. And therefore in Bhajan Rahasya, Thakur Bhaktivinoda says a very beautiful thing. Let's bring this up. When he speaks about what is the most confidential bhajan, he says, Nama-adhikara yata bhagavate, that the qualification or the adhikar for chanting the holy name is given in the Bhagavatam. Wow, this is an important verse. And we spoke about this before, so you may remember. This is, he quotes the 20th chapter of the 11th canto, text 27 and 28, as being the verses which describe what is the adhikar, what is our qualification for chanting. Let's look at those verses. Jata shradomakata su nirvinasai vakarmasa vedidikatmakam kaman parityage pyanishvaraha tatobhajetamam pritaha shradalurdvida nishchayaha jusamanas chatan kaman duku darkams chagarhayan. This is Trinadapi Sanichena. That jata shado makatasu, that in the beginning, jata means to take birth. Jata shado, I developed the beginning I have some faith. Matkatasu, Krishna says in my kata. Nirvina saiva karmasu. And we discussed it, we understand that sense gratification is just bad. It's just not going to solve any problems. We were in Rukmini Mataji's description about her coming to Prabhupada. She spoke about how the first time she met the devotees was in 1967 in San Francisco. And probably all of you know what San Francisco was like in 1967. And some people have kind of a real poetic opinion about what it was like. But as George Harrison commented later, it was a terrible scene of hedonism and depression, of people who just indulged completely in sense gratification, and they had no answers. They were very, very depressed. So many of those people, when they found the devotees, Rukmini, she said it was like the temple was an oasis in the middle of that desert. That's nirvana sarva karmasu. That, okay, I'm going to follow full regulated principle. I'm going to give up all these things. Veda dukatmakam kaman paritiye panishvara. And I know, Veda, I know that dukkha, the sense gratification is common, is going to bring me unhappiness. Veda dukatmakam kaman. But parityage pyanishvaraha. I don't have the strength to give it up. These two verses, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Bhajan Rahasya, which is a postgraduate book, postgraduate study of Harinam Chintamani, comes after Harinam Chintamani. He speaks about the most confidential types of bhajan. He says, this is Nam Adhikar. This is what it means to have qualification for the chanting of the holy name. That you can't control your senses. That's what the first verse is speaking about. I can't give this thing up. I don't have the strength to give it up. So what should I do in that situation? Tato bhaje tamam pritaha. Just keep chanting. Just keep going on doing bhajan for me. But do it shadalur drida nishchayaha. Do that with faith, shraddha, and drida nishcha. Firm conviction, resolute conviction. Jusa manastatan kaman, even while you're engaging in your nonsense sense gratification. This is a verse which I think, frankly, a lot of times devotees are not very comfortable with quoting, because usually we just say, you just got to cut it, that's it. But here in the Bhagavatam, Krishna's telling Uddhava that maybe they can't give it up. The Jews samanistatan kaman. So what did they do while they're engaged in their sense gratification? They should keep doing my bhajan. And dukkha dar comes chagarhayan. Garayan here, they put in the synonyms of repenting. But garayan comes from the same bij dhatu as agni, or fire. It means to burn in lamentation. And this is why oftentimes I found in our society, devotees ask, let's be frank, I think it's an honest question. It's a good question. That, look, I've been around some time and I've noticed not everybody follows all the principles properly. And why then do we have all these regulated principles, these 4 regulated principles, if they're not, devotees are not able to do it? Well, the first thing that we come to understand historically, if you speak to Shrutakirti Prabhu or Harisari Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada's 2 main servants probably, and I asked them both this question, and they both told me the same thing, that during the time of Srila Prabhupada, many devotees came to Prabhupada, many sannyasis came to Srila Prabhupada, saying, Prabhupada, I'm not able to follow all the regulated principles. And Prabhupada just told them, do the best you can. For the grihasthas, Prabhupada said, just be with your wife. And this verse gives some understanding. Then the question comes, well, then why does, if that's the fact, why does all this stuff about the regulated principle, why don't you just tell people, anyway, just work on things, do the best you can? No, Srila Prabhupada was very, very strict. Because of that strictness, if we don't compromise that, dukkha dar comes chagar hayan, that agni, that fire of lamentation will arise in our heart, because we feel, I'm really, really fallen. So I promised to follow these principles and have not been able to do that. Now, at this point, I'd like to share with you something really strong for my own purification from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. It's from a conversation where he speaks about, there's a question, let's just see it here. Question is, what is the difference between weakness and deceitfulness or hypocrisy? a big question. And he says that weakness is one thing, but deceitfulness is another. They're not the same thing. Good things happen to a person who's free from deceit. A deceitful person, however, doesn't get any benefit. Another name for straightforwardness is Vaishnavata, the quality of being a Vaishnava. A straightforward person can be weak, but he's not deceitful. A person who's deceitful says one thing and thinks another. A weak person is always ashamed, sorry, and mortified because of his own inadequacies, but a deceitful person is proud of his own tricks. And he describes the mentality of such a person. I will deceive the acharya. I will fool the doctor. I will hide the poisonous snakes of my bad tendencies in the dark recess of hypocrisy and will not let anyone know about them. And I will get some name and fame from other people by pretending to be saintly. This kind of mentality is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of terrible deceitfulness. Such people will never benefit. One gradually receives the grace of God by listening to the pure words of a sadhu in a humble, sincere mood. If we put on the garb, the dress of a devotee, and become busy with non-devotional activities, if we're absorbed in material enjoyment, and that becomes a priority, or if we take the Tridanda sannyas staff and want to kidnap Sita, the goddess of fortune, like Ravan, then we are stabbing ourselves to death. We are doing something terrible in the name of Hari Bhajan. If for millions of births we have some weakness, some bad habits, that's not so harmful. But if once we take to the path of deceitfulness, we pretend to be devotees, but secretly we engage in sinful enjoyment, then all troubles will remain with us. It is better to take birth among millions of other species as a bird or a beast or an insect. To take the path of deceitfulness is never good. This is, by the way, this statement is one of the last spoken words of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. It was also printed by Srila Prabhupada in one of his Back to Godhead magazines. So this is, our system is to be honest. And that honesty gives rise to humility. And therefore, Tanadapi Sunichena is our Siddha Pranali mantra. And we hear about how Swarupa and Sanatana Goswamis, how they fell at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Sanatana Goswami in Varanasi, we hear in Madhya Lila chapter 20 about their conversation. Well, let's look at that a little bit. And there's so many things we could go on with this discussion about how Siddha Pranali is our Siddha Pranali mantra, how Trinadapi Sunichena is our Siddha Pranali mantra. I don't want to go through so many different sessions on this. Let me just look here, some of the comments. Nikunja Bihari is nice. I wonder who wrote this comment, though. Looks like it was written by this particular devotee. How humility is a door approaching the holy name. In any case, that's a fact. And Jayagore is commenting about these verses from Utkalika Valari. There's so many beautiful descriptions of humility from our acharyas. And why are they giving those verses? Not just to impress everybody how humble I am so that you'll give me some money or you'll give me some respect or something, but this is our Siddha Pranali mantra, our Siddha Pranali process. How are we going to give up this ahamta and mamata, this identification with the body, and this attitude, these things belong to me? How we have to, our chitta has to be reflective. So we want to bring before it this humility and understand our real situation. We want to give up all of our false identification. So let's look at this conversation between Sanatana Goswami and Mahaprabhu. And I would look a little bit at this in a few of the verses, quite a long discussion. And we'll finish with this. He says, Nicha jati nita sange petita pav adama. This is the same words that they were used in Madhya chapter 1, Nicha Jati, Nicha Sangi. Exact same words that the word comes from a low family, our association's all bad. And then he says, Patita Adama. I'm very fallen. I'm the lowest person. Kuvi Shaya Kupe Padi. I fell down into this well of material enjoyment. And this is Goinainu Janama. This is my life. So he's coming before him. Again, this is my introduction to you. Apanara hita hita. Kichu inajani. Gramya vyavahare pandita tai satyamani. He says that I don't know what's good or what's bad. Hita ahita. I don't know what I should do, what I shouldn't do. Kicha naijani. I just don't know. So I'm coming before you. And I'm asking you, everybody out there running around, everybody's telling me, Gramya Vavahari Pandita, that you're a great Pandit. And I think of myself like that. I have this abhiman, this kind of pride, but I don't really know anything. So please, I want you to tell me, what is my duty? What should I do? How should I behave? And the next verse, he describes this. Kripa Kori, please be merciful. Jari Mori Kariyachi Udar. So you've done this thing. You've given some mercy to me, but what do I want then? You should please tell me then. Kartabhya Amar, what should I do? This is Guru. This is how to approach Guru. And then Sanatana Goswami, our Sambandhacharya, speaks this verse, which we were just mentioning. Kayami kena amai jari tapatrai. Iha nahi jani ke manahita hoy. Kayami, who am I? Keni amai jari tapatrai. Why is it that I'm always suffering in this world? Was it Rabindra Swarup Prabhu once commented something I always like to repeat. What do you say how do you put that? Oh, I can't remember. But anyway, something to the effect that it's better to be honest and depressed than to be an illusion and happy. That's the fact. Let me be honest with myself. And this is Sanatana Goswami. If you tell this to people on the street, say, man, why are you being so depressed? But this is the nature of Maya or illusion, that we're always thinking everything is okay. Everything is just fine. There's nothing wrong with me, even though, everybody, all my friends are dying and everything bad is going on around me. Still, I have this hope that everything's going to be okay. So we have to give this up, and we have to accept the ecstasy of insignificance. Actually, there's some other things I'd like to go on to just briefly. It's really, really beautiful and very, very important. This is from the Bhakti Sandarbha, Anucheta 209 of Srila Jiva Goswami, where he speaks about the chanting of the holy name and how to chant. Guru Bhakti Samiliti Smaranat Sevyate Budai. Militopi Nalabhyate Jiva Ahamika Parai. By Guru Bhakti Samiliti, we attain connection with the Lord, Milan. Smaranat Sevyate Budai. An intelligent person serves the Lord. Someone is Budai, Smaranat Sevyate, serves the Lord by remembering him. But militopi na labhyate, that's not obtained, it's not happened. Labhyate means to gain. Na labhyate, doesn't happen. That milita, that union, that doesn't happen. Jiva ahamika parai. When someone has pride, even though they may come in contact with the Lord. And that's a verse that he was quoting from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. And then he goes on to explain more about our system again from Brahma-bhakti-candrika. And again, he's speaking about this ahamta mamta, this ahankara. Ahankara nibritanam keshavo nahi duraga. Ahankara yutanam hi madhye parvata rasaya. That the Lord is very easy to attain. Keshava nahi duraga. Duraga means something very difficult. But to attain the Lord is not very hard for someone who's ahankara nivritanam, who's given up this ahamta and mamata, this false ego, this sense of I and mine. Krishna is very easy to get. Ahankara yutanam hi. But for someone who's ahankara yukta, who has this false ego, madhye parvata rasaya, it's just like there's a Himalayan mountain between you and the Lord, between you and Nama-bhajana. So for us, we understand that this Trinadapi Sanichena verse, this mood of Trinadapi Sanichena, this is our Siddha Pranali mantra. Let me just share a couple other verses from Shastra in this regard. This is a verse from the third canto of the Bhagavatam, chapter 9, text 9. Yavat pritaktvam idam atmana, yavat pritaktvam idam atmana indriharta, maya balam bhagavato jana isha bhashyat, tavanna samsmitiraso pratisankrameta, vyartapi dukkha nivaham vahati kriyarta. O my Lord, the material miseries are without factual existence for the soul. Yet as long as the conditioned soul sees the body is meant for sense enjoyment, he cannot get out of the entanglement of material miseries being influenced by your external energy. And we can't come to that point of nirodha, manomadhye sito mantra, where our mind and the mantra become one because of our inattentiveness, because of our ahamta and mamata. But how do we get rid of that ahamta and mamata? It comes when we practice this Trinadapi Sanichena. So this is really then our Siddha Pranali mantra. Yeah, thank you, Lila Purushottam. Reality is always preferable no matter to illusion, no matter how cheerful. What constitutes to renounce ahankara, it seems to me it's not just a matter of immediate decision. Yeah, that's a fact. This is our whole point. To renounce ahankara, our chitta has to come into place. We have to clean that chitta. We have to clean that heart. We have to clean our mirror, cheto darpana marjanam. It'll reflect what's around us, but it won't reflect properly if it's all black and dirty and things. So we won't be able to get benefit of the sadhus. We'll speak something more about the connection of the holy name and Siddha Pranali in our next session. I want to read a little bit more to you guys. This I've got pages and pages of stuff. It's really, really good. This is from Bhakti Sandarbha, Anucheta 270. And there's a few verses or a few prose Sanskrit things here, 4 or 5. Let's just go over these and we'll go ahead and finish that. Because it's speaking about the connection between chanting and humility. Iyam cha kirtanakya bhakti bhagavato dravya jati guna kriya bir dina janaika vishaya para karuna maiti shruti puranadi vishrutihi kolocha dinatvam yata brahma vaivarte. So he's quoting next verse from Brahma Vivarta Purana. And he says, we have this kirtanakya bhakti bhagavato, this worship of the Lord, this bhakti for the Lord, which is in the form of kirtanakya bhakti. And this kirtanakya bhakti is very merciful to devotees who are dravya jati guna kriyabhya dina janaika vishaya parana, who are very, very humble, dina, and they don't have any pride in their vishai, they don't in their wealth, and their prestigious birth and their accomplishments and things, they get this karuna. Maiti Shruti Puranadi Vishrutihi. This is understood from the Vedas and the Puranas. Kalo Chadinatvam Yata Brahmavevarte. Humility is natural in Kali Yuga because we're all screwed up. And then he quotes the Brahmavevarte Purana. To Kalo Tapo Yoga Vidya Yagnadika Kriyaha Sangha Bhavanti Na Kritaha Kushalaya Api Dehi Bihi. Therefore, in Kali Yuga, all these different activities, tapo, yoga, vidya, yagya, all these different things, penances, practice of yoga, study of the Vedas, they can't be properly done, even by persons who are really very expert. Ata eva kolo subhava ta eva tadinishu lokesh avibhuyatan Anayasanyaiva tadyuga gata maha sadananam sarvameva phalam dadana sa kritartayati. And therefore, in this age, in the age of Kali, the natural system for people who have this dainya, who are humble, is a practice of Sankirtan, the practice of chanting the holy name. And that gives them everything. But if we don't practice this chanting along with humility, then we don't get the proper result. And this is why I feel so disturbed sometimes when I see devotees who are practicing this process. They're chanting the holy names. They're reading Srimad-Bhagavatam. They're offering obeisances to the deity. They're respecting Srila Prabhupada, but they're criticizing other devotees. And we're not going to get the proper result, even though we may be chanting. We have to practice this humility, this meekness. Ata eva tayaiva kalo bhagavato visheshatascha santosha bhavati. So in this age, for this reason, in Kali Yuga, Krishna is really only pleased, santosha, by the practice of Harinam Kirtan. Tataiva chaivotamam loke tapasri Hari Kirtanam kalo yuge visheshena Vishnu Prityai Samachaya. It's a verse from the Skanda Purana. That of all the different tapa or different austerities that someone may do, the best is Hari Kirtan, to chant the Holy Lord's names. In Kali Yuga especially, we should do Kirtan for the pleasure of the Lord. And if we can do like this, if we practice this Vishad yoga, Bish means poison, Ada means to accept. This is the yoga of lamentation, the way to connect with the Lord through lamentation, through owning what we have. And therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says that this, our qualification, Nama-adhikar, our qualification to chant the holy name is our disqualification. That doesn't mean that the more bad things that I do, the more qualification I'm going to get for chanting the holy name. And we spoke about this description from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that some people, what is the difference? I think it was a question, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. What is the difference between deceitfulness and being fallen, being humble? And he's very, very strong about that. It means that we should own it. And therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says that better that I go on and I can't follow anything, but I'm just what I am, than to be someone who's pretending something that they're not. As we said earlier, some people say that what is it? You fake it until you get it. But if we fake it, we're not going to get it. It's not going to work. We just lost Ujjala Resagya, Siddha Hari Prabhu's nice comments. Okay, so I'm going to stop here now. And if anybody has any reflections, comments, corrections, anything, Krishna Kunj here too is nice. Krishna Kunj at the temple right now. She went to cook for Niranjan Maharaj. Anybody has any reflections you'd like to share or questions, go ahead. I'm sorry. There's a lot of technical things. And again, I addressed this before, but I'm doing this very consciously because we want to show this is our Siddhanta, this is our philosophy, not just the philosophy of the followers of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta or Srila Prabhupada, but this is our Gaudiya line. This is a process for the age of Kali. Orsi, you have some comment, question, something?
Yes, thank you. Hare Krishna. I would like to share my experience, if it's possible, because I think that previously I was really, really hypocrite. And at a point I started to be honest. And by honest, because I was not good inside, a lot of pride, arrogance, and so on, it came out. And by that honesty, the result was that I was really ashamed by a lot of situations. So it was really like fire, or I don't know, which is burn. It was so painful, actually. And I remember that when I approached you with Krishna Kund, it was so, the feeling that it was so shameful to me that even I can step ahead. But I'm still not calm, because never know that maybe black snakes in my unconscious mind, maybe there are. And sometimes I feel that I cannot control what's happening. It's so fearful, actually. So it's anxiety, actually. So it's to be honest, my experience that it's really, really good, but it's not an easy not an easy thing, especially if somebody is well, I don't even I would say that I'm wrong. It would be seem I'm not humble. So it's totally confusion. It's I don't know. So I hope that it is understandable.
Yeah, it's very, very important. We have to, sometimes we can't see ourselves unless we come in contact with someone who can see us. And if our heart is a good enough mirror, if our heart is clean enough, just like some people, you know, so many students in the university, so many people we meet, they're just completely absorbed in how am I going to get a nice car? How am I going to get a nice husband or nice wife? How am I going to make money in my career? And that's all that they're thinking about. It's just complete materialism. There's no question of any KME, who am I? What is the purpose of my life? And that ahamta mamata is completely covering them. But when they come in touch with the sadhus, we spoke in a few sessions ago, and they hear something about who they are, and they hear something about the chanting of a holy name, then they can begin to cry a bit. And when that crying begins, that atmakrandana, then the heart becomes more purified. And then we come in contact with devotees, and we can understand what is my real situation, because now my heart is like a mirror. It's a little bit clean. The mirror, when we're cleaning this mirror of our heart, it's like someone pulled motor oil all over it, not just fresh new motor oil, but motor oil from your car that hasn't been changed in 15 years. It's black and greasy and really, really dirty. And you can take a cloth and wipe it, but you still can't see anything. You have to really, really keep wiping and wiping and wiping. And after some time of wiping, it's still pretty black, but you can begin to see something. Right? And that's our situation in this material world. We begin to, our mirrors become clean enough that we can understand that I'm actually really fallen. I'm really a jerk. It's a very, very important understanding. Thank you very much, Orsi. It was a good comment. I appreciate it. Subal Saka Prabhu wrote something. Let me just go ahead and read that, and then we can go to Dorothy. Hare Krishna Prabhu, my humble obeisances. Thank you for stressing the importance of Sri Harinam, repeating it again and again. Question first, Samprarthanatmaka, then comes Danya Bodhika. That's the Krama sequence of prayer and mood. But in Gita, first comes Danya of Arjuna, the yoga of lamentation. Could you make it clear? Could you also you mentioned without sampartanatmika, real humility, danya is artificial. Yeah. So it does seem contradictory in the Bhagavad Gita, because in the first chapter, Arjuna is giving his Danya Bodhika, but it's not, there's no sampartanatmika. He hasn't surrendered. And that surrender comes in the second chapter of the Gita. When Arjuna tells Krishna that I'm giving up everything, I don't know who I am. He says basically the same thing Sanatana Goswami said, that who am I? You please teach me who I am. So that's real dainya. And that other thing, just like sometimes people, there's so many people in this world who become depressed. And you may say they're humble. They're really humble. They've made so many mistakes. They went to prison. They did this and that. But the fruit of their so-called humility is self-intoxication. They just drink themselves to death, or they commit suicide with a gun or poison or something, because they're depressed. They can't face the reality of themselves. So that's not real dainya. That's just self-pity. And this is what we see. Of course, Arjuna doesn't actually feel sorry for himself, but that's the kind of dainya that we find in the first chapter of the Gita. It's still good because he's approaching the Lord. When we don't approach the Lord, when we don't approach sadhu, and we just drown ourselves in our miseries, and we just feel miserable and depressed, and sorry for ourselves, that's a kind of suicide. But when we take that to the Lord, and we still feel sorry for ourselves, there's still some ahamta mamata. There's still some sense of I and mine. We go but instead of just pouring that in ourselves and wallowing in the urine of our self-pity, we come before the Lord of the devotee and we say, this is how I feel. And we reveal our heart to the Lord. And that's what Arjuna finally does before Krishna. But he does it properly in the second chapter. Is that helpful? Subhasaka Prabhu? Thank you very much. Your comments are always so wonderful. I really, really appreciate very much. Hare Krishna. And can I call you Dorothy? Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhu, of course.
Okay, because that's more common. Dorothy, I'm not used to, but I grew up with the Wizard of Oz, and Dorothy was our hero. You ever saw that movie? I think that's a little mundane, but Dorothy, she went to the land of Oz on the other side of the rainbow. So go ahead.
Hare Krishna, the devotees, please accept my pranams. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. I'm so glad and grateful to be in the Sangha. And I want to thank also Madhavananda Prabhu for bringing out the importance of humility again, because this topic is something that I feel like consciously or even consciously avoiding, because it's like it's easier to be proud and there's always some phases when I just sink into this pride, and there's like weeks passing until finally this it really dawns on me again that humility is actually essential. And especially if there's so much reading and so much getting to know these technical details of everything regarding bhakti and bhajan, then it's like, okay, now I know something more than others. And then when I observe others not around me, especially not following these things or not knowing these things or instructing something else, then I feel kind of superior and don't feel the need to really hear those persons properly. And so it's really this reminds me of an article by not article, but it was an excerpt of a lecture by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I would like to read a little bit out of that, where he says that if I ever began to really focus on my own welfare, would I have time to observe another's imperfections? So yeah, it's and I also I would like to ask a question to Madhavananda Prabhu. I'm not sure if I understood this correctly, that actually the humility is, one second, I had a note here. If so, is the aim of expressing humility, is it actually finding out our swarup in the spiritual world? Is that the final or most essential aim, even more than kind of, yeah, I like usually humility is expressed, at least by me, to get acceptance by somebody, to be accepted, and to better the relationship with somebody. But this seems to be there seems to be like something even deeper than that. If you would like to comment on that.
Just as Sanatana Goswami was expressing to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in those verses from Madhya chapter 20, he was asking him, what should I do? I don't know. I don't know what to do and what not to do. And that's really the foundation of our bhajan. We know what to do. Chant Hare Krishna. Mahaprabhu could have just said, Sanatana Goswami, didn't you learn? Didn't you hear? Chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. but there's something more to that. We, according to the degree of our hamta and our mamata, our attachment to our what I think belongs to me and a conception of myself as being something material, then I'm going to have a corresponding motivation in what I do. So in the beginning, I would suggest that we should generally, for most of us, we follow principles because that's what we're supposed to do. And we act out of humility because that's what I'm supposed to do, because I've been told to do that, and because I want to please the Vaishnavas. I want to please the higher Vaishnavas. And in his Bhakti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami explains that we should work to melt the heart of an advanced Vaishnava. And so that's how we should be. And how do we do that? By chanting the holy name with humility and with respect. Not just that, as sometimes devotees seem to think that preaching means pride. Preaching means that I'm going to come in and, and proclaim myself a big person and make a big poster of myself, and I'm going to solve all the problems. I'm going to start my own Facebook group, how to chant the holy names properly because I'm such an expert person. And this is what preaching means, Prabhu. That we have sometimes that conception. That's a very, very dangerous thing. So we should be very, very careful. Pride is not bhakti. And as far as sometimes when we have this ahamta mamata, as we're going along, we'll have different motivations. In the beginning, it may just be that I'm supposed to touch the feet of my parents and senior persons. I'm supposed to be respectful to my older sister. I'm supposed to be respectful to seniors because that's what our culture does. A little higher than that is we understand that I want to please those persons. I want to melt their heart. And then it may further develop. As our consciousness becomes purified, we may want to know, well, who am I? Who am I? And then our that Trinadapi spirit is directed in that way. But it's not something that we can just artificially wrap around our neck, like we put a slogan or something around our neck. That this is who I am, or this is what I like to do. I like pizza or something. Someone wears a T-shirt like that. It's not such a simplistic thing as that. It's just claiming something. But as our consciousness becomes more purified, it'll naturally transform, and we'll be attracted to other things. And as far as pride, when we have some understanding that other people don't have, we shouldn't be. We should first of all try to associate with persons who know much more than us. Otherwise, we may become big fish in a small pond. You know, you have a little puddle and the puddle's nothing, but there's two little tiny fish this big in there, but you're just a few cm bigger than those other fish, so you think I'm a very important person. Well, we should go and associate with fish who are like this big, and then oh my God, and that's the real standard. And I had that good fortune personally in some ways, associating with Fakir Mohan Prabhu, who I just found out today. At one point, they invited him to be the Shankaracharya in Puri, which is an extremely big position. He was so learned in Shankar Vedanta, although he's a Gaudiya Vaishnava, they invited him to do that. He was an astonishing scholar, and I just felt like this big in front of him, and the same thing with my Guru Maharaj. But at the same time, we don't always have that good fortune of being around persons like that. And sometimes we're around other persons. So what can we do? I like to think of the analogy of children. I like children. And when you get around children, you look at them. One thing I like to do with children, I learned this from Indrajumna Maharaj. Ask them, devotee children, do you ever have dreams about Krishna? Especially children who are like 10 years, younger than 10 years of age. You ask them, and oh my God, I have gotten some of those little children have told me some really, really amazing things. And they're just a simple child. They're not lying to you. You can see that. And they have some amazing dreams. And you realize, whoa, this child is so much more elevated than me. But the same child just hit his brother with his fist, just did this nonsense thing and whatever like that. So when you deal with children, they're always doing some nonsense thing. 90% of the time, most of the children, unless they're really like a Dhruva Maharaj or Prahlad Maharaj kind of thing, kind of personality, they always screw up, they always do something, but you forgive them. You overlook that. And if you're a little wise, you can look and see, oh, this child, and maybe a small kid, doesn't know mathematics, doesn't know a lot of shlokas in Bhagavad Gita, they're a little restless and whatever, but they're having amazing dreams of Krishna, and they get some taste in kirtan. They have things that I don't have. And so I like this analogy of children, and I apply this to children, I apply this to adults, I apply this to seniors. Because sometimes you see them do some mistake. You know, even a senior sometimes just gets, excuse my American English, they get pissed off. They get angry, and they treat you in a harsh way. Donadar Maharaj, we were speaking to him on the phone a week ago, and he told us a little story. Who was it? Oh, it was about an old friend of mine. What's his name? Who left his body? His name's not coming to my mind. Who was with Srila Prabhupada in South Africa, and Prabhupada was having some difficulties with a visa. And so there was some discussion with the devotees what to do about that. And this devotee spoke up and said something, and he was kind of out of place to speak up. And Prabhupada just turned to him in a very cutting, heavy way, said, idiot, something like that. And that devotee became very hurt. And he didn't speak to Srila Prabhupada for 2 weeks. He was in Prabhupada's traveling party. He was with Prabhupada, but he didn't speak to him for 2 weeks because he felt so hurt by what Srila Prabhupada did. And then he noticed after a few weeks, Prabhupada had forgotten all about it. Sometimes Prabhupada would act in a very harsh way, and then the next moment would be like something completely different. So I don't want to try to compare Srila Prabhupada to a child and say, well, I forgive you, Srila Prabhupada. That's not my position to forgive him. It's not my position to forgive a senior person. But in the same way that I don't take very seriously what a child does when a child hits his brother or something like that and fights over a toy or some stupid thing. It's just a child thing, and I can still respect them. So in the same way, when I see somebody make a mistake, the devotees are always upset. If you have a manager who's supposed to be, you're supposed to be somebody who's in charge of you, and that person abuses you in one way or another. And so many devotees can't tolerate it, and they become very, very angry. That person did this and this. But I look at it, they're like children. You don't blame a small child for falling off the bicycle when they're 5 years old. You don't blame a 1-year-old child for not having proper pronunciation or proper grammar in their talk. It's a child. They're going to get over that. And so in the same way, amongst many devotees, now I'm not talking so much about seniors, but peers, when I see someone committing some mistake, I think it's just like a child. And I don't take it very seriously because they're chanting the holy names, and sooner or later that whatever envy I may see in them, whatever imperfection I may see in them, that's all going to go away. Is that okay, Dorothy? Does that help?
Yes, this is so helpful. Thank you so much. This helps me to have a purer vision and to just have a more forgiving vision of others. Thank you.
See, when we speak about amanina manadena, about being respectful to others, it's not just something we bow our head down. It's like doing push-ups or something, exercise or something. But we do it, as Sanatana Goswami said, with our body, words, and mind. Also with our mind. And I used to find that when I was doing book distribution. And we used to go to LAX, or the airport in Los Angeles. And my God, those Los Angeles businessmen with their suit and ties and their briefcases, when they come through, I didn't know how to relate to them. And I felt they were so proud and things. And then after some years, I came to think, well, actually, I'm the one who's proud. And I should realize that they have good qualities that I don't have. They're better than me. They can deal with money much better than I can. You can ask Krishna Kun. I'm terrible dealing with money. They can make plans and take care of things in a much more efficient way than I can. I'm terrible. They're better than me. So if we go through life with that mood, oh, they're better than me, better than me. That's my mantra. They're better than me, better than me. And every person that I meet, I genuinely try to look for some good quality in them and bring it out and say, oh, this is so far out. You're a good poet, how you said that, or this or that. And even the person's a non-devotee meat eater, but they have some good quality that I don't have. And if we go through life like that, finding good things in everybody, you'll get to keep some of those good things. It'll come to you. And you'll be very, very blissful. Whereas if you go through life with the opposite attitude, looking for everybody's faults, and then you'll also get to keep that. And you'll be a very depressed person. Okay? So Dorothy was asking me to join our Prema group. And I usually don't do that because I like to have a nice Sangha, but she seems like she's working really well at this Sangha. So I just added you to our Prema group, but you have to pay some fee. There's a charge. And the charge is you have to share in that group that quote you just read from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, okay?
Yes, will do.
That's the fee.
Thank you so much.
So, Jim. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Anybody else want to share any thoughts, any reflections, or anything? As Gorni Tai Prabhu said something really nice. Please, Prabhu, share your experiences. How do you apply the knowledge or remaining humble in chanting japa, or when you have some difficulties to keep focus on the holy names? Thank you. Gorni Tai Prabhu. And Jai Gauri gives a really nice comment that Krishna Lila is like a powerful degreaser. And Bonnie, should I read your comment, Bonnie? Would you like to read it?
Oh, either way is fine. What?
Okay, well, let the devotees hear your sweet voice.
Oh,
go ahead.
Well, I'll have to, if I can pull it up again. I said, sometimes people are very flattering when one knows that they've not put forth all your own effort, and not even close. And I'm trying to be honest, but then the other person, and this happens more than once. It's not like just one thing, and I'm saying it in plural, but it's like it happens, a lot. And then they become like when you be honest with them and say no, this flattery is not warranted, and then they become more flattering, and they're like, no, you're doing very good. You're doing the best you can. I'm like, no, I'm being honest with you, and it's like, and it's hard to find that point where you don't want to like become like you're trying to get attention for it, but also you feel compelled to be honest. So it feels very it's like you're getting hit in the head either way, which is probably good, especially if you've done something wrong. But at the same time, it doesn't feel good. So lose. That's what I said at the end. I don't know. It feels like a lose scenario.
Yeah. You know, as we continue to chant, I see in devotees a symptom of advancement is we become more natural. We become more understanding of who we are and what we are, and we become more sensitive to our association and to what we're taking in. And whereas in the beginning, just like a small child, when I was, I don't know, 6 years old or something, my father made a playhouse for us in the backyard. And we had little costumes and we would play, act like a policeman or an army man or this thing or that thing. So in the same way that children dress up and they pretend something that they're not, in the same way in the beginning of our Krishna consciousness, when we're like children and we're not very mature yet, a lot of us, we're acting something. And we're just we think it just means behaving like this to everybody, and we learn something. Just like if you study something about a crime, about serial killers, mass murders, or something, it's a very common thing that they're very sweet in their talk. I can't think of the names of any serial killers, but I've heard about some of them who. Huh? Ted Bundy, right? That's a good example. I heard about Ted Bundy.
He was just like you were saying.
Yeah, very, very sweet. And he learned the art of flattery and speaking very nicely to people. And so sometimes devotees, we also learn that. And hopefully we're not like Ted Bundy, but we, like Ted Bundy, we learned that this is a way to control people. This is a way to get respect from people. This is a way to sell them a book or to convince them or get them to manage people. It's not always bad if you're doing it in a good way to sell them a book, if you're doing it to help organize a temple or something, it's not so bad. But if we're sensitive, if we become a little more mature in our bhakti, when that happens and we come across that kind of thing, we naturally find it a little distasteful. We're not impressed with it. Just like, just like if a child walks into the office and he's dressed up in a suit and tie and today, I'm the CEO of the company. It's kind of cute, but you're also, look, kid, we have some work to do here in this meeting. You please go somewhere else. We don't have a lot of patience for that when we're serious about something. We can appreciate it's cute, we don't mind it, but we need to get on with things. And so in the same way, we should tolerate, we should be respectful. I think this attitude that we were mentioning to Dorothy about treating people like children. We like children, we love children, and we overlook their immaturity. So we do the same thing with devotees, but it's not that I want to hang out with kids all the time. Leela Purushottam Prabhu has so many children in his family there, and he likes kids. He's a good person with kids. Actually, I'll tell you a secret. He's just a big kid. He's about, if you get to normally, he's about like 10 years old in his mentality, maybe 12, something like that. In his mentality, he's a very sweet, innocent person, but he doesn't like it when all the kids come over and there's like 10 kids in the house. And he's like, I think I'm going to go for a drive and go for a walk in the forest or something, because it's intense. If you ever live next to a school, it's a really, really heavy thing with all the kids screaming and shouting and making all this noise and things. We love the kids. We want to encourage the kids, but it's also something we want to keep away from. And so in our progress in bhakti, it's natural. In the beginning, people, they fake it till they make it, as the saying goes. They're trying, but they're not going to make it if they fake it, as we said. But we have this attitude of faking it, but it's not going to help. And after some time, we become naturally, it's not a sweet thing. We're not pleased by that. Is that helpful, Bonnie?
Sometimes if someone's being very sweet and then the person isn't responding the way they want, even like among the devotees, they might become very not sweet, and that's and you that can be very frightening.
Yeah, that's the Ted Bundy syndrome, right? Or the Dracula syndrome.
Well,
Dracula also was a very sweet, nice
yeah.
guy. until you go
Even
against
on
him and then
a
his teeth come
level.
out.
Yeah. The teeth come out, but like not necessarily like Ted Bundy, but even within it makes you hard to trust someone, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, trust is a beautiful thing. We have to, first of all, we have to earn trust too. It's a two-way street. And it's not just that we can demand someone trust us or that we can demand that someone be trustworthy, but we know in relationships, when in husband and wife, when marital relationships, you have to learn to trust that person, and they have to earn it. It's not just, and that's one reason why some people feel attracted to another person immediately when they meet, but they don't get married right away because we have to work out, can I really trust you? And Krishna's doing the same thing with us. Can I really trust you? He's asking. And he's giving us so many tests, one after another, one after another. And so many times we're failing, but we're still going on. I really like your Harinam Chatter. You got that at the Rath Yatra in New York?
I didn't go to Rath Yatra this year.
Oh, somehow I thought you
I
had.
got it. Well, I decided it might be easier not to. I went to New Vrindavan instead. On the day of Rath Yatra, I was at New Vrindavan, and I got this at their temple. Thank you.
Yeah, I know Rath Yatra is going to remind you of certain persons and things, and may be a little painful. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. I'm really happy to have this in Vrindavan. It's been so many years since we saw you. Maybe we'll come back to America sometime and get to see you again.
And maybe I can come to Europe or India.
Yeah. I've always would like that. Hare Krishna.
I miss you both very much.
Okay, Bunny. Hare Krishna. I love you, the Jagannath and the picture and things here. Thank you for that. Ishwari Prema, nice to see you also. We kind of missed you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, nice to see you. Please accept my obeisances.
How is the construction in your house going?
It's nothing moving there, but it's the same. But I won't say we was very busy. We was preparing for Snana Yatra festival. It was outside, so it's not so important that it was, just people need to go to toilet, so no problem. Yes, so, and also when I asked a question, I was studying your magazine about seeing good in others. This all three magazines I was studying. And also when that task is very nice and important, maybe one of most important questions, topics when we're practicing. So I wanted to ask one question. So we need to see just good in others. And an example, what to do if sometimes we see that some senior devotees, they are maybe look that they are a little bit in critical mood and they are sometimes not acting good with others. And what to do? It is good to speak about this with others, or it is also offensive even to see this or to speak about this. I don't know what sometimes the situation is happening.
The policy that I like to observe when that happens to me, and it happens, I think, to all of us, is that I try to think, well, whatever I tell somebody privately, I should expect that's going to go back to that person. Like I've been having a discussion with Leela Purushottam, and I started talking about Orsi. And I said, do you know that Orsi? She's like this and this and this. And well, what if Leela Purushottam, the next time he talks with her, he says, you know what Madhavananda said about you? And he tells that thing, then that may just really hurt her feelings. And it's going to offend her. And by breaking her heart, it's going to bring problems to me. Radha Govinda Maharaj once commented, he said that if you want to stay in Vrindavan, don't hurt the heart of any Brajbasis. So we should be careful, but that doesn't mean that we have to be blind followers. We should not be blind followers. Don't be stupid. If somebody's doing something wrong, that's wrong. But it depends on the degree. Let me give you a few examples. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that someone who's a Mahatara, who's a great personality, a more great personality, if a thief comes to them with a knife in the winter, and the thief says, give me your kumbal, your blanket, or I'm going to kill you, then that saintly person gives the blanket, and he thinks, actually, that thief is really saintly. How is he saintly? Well, because he had a knife. He could have hurt me, but he didn't. And so in the same way, we can look at sometimes leaders or persons, and we can think he could have done a lot worse. He could have really hurt me. He could have done this thing or that thing, and he didn't, because he has some good quality, and we think that. But the general principle the Bhagavatam describes is the practice of upeksha. And in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, when it describes about the symptoms of a madhyam adhikari, symptoms we have to cultivate, one of them is that for someone who's envious, we practice upeksha, we practice neglect. And neglect means neglect. We don't hate them. I remember Fakir Mohan Prabhu, my teacher, how he just loved the senior devotees, and how once when Parthasarathi Maharaj's non-devotee mother and family came to Vrindavan, Fakir Mohan Prabhu offered obeisances to Parthasarathis mother, non-devotee mother. And she was a little shocked. She didn't know what to do about that. And when Fakir Mohan Prabhu was getting up, and he saw the look on her face, he said, no, we really mean this. With great seriousness, we really mean this, because you're the mother of such a devotee. So we overlook someone's faults, and if we do see some faults or something in them, we just don't touch that. We just go some other place. Maybe we have to keep a physical distance even. That same Fakir Mahaprabhu, now I remember when I was telling the story, the same Fakir Mahaprabhu, later on, he was traveling in a group with one, I don't want to be political or say something bad about somebody, so I won't say names, but he was traveling with one sannyasi that I knew, who I had kept a distance from for some time, because he made up his own philosophy, he made up his own mantra. He promoted himself like anything all over the place as being a very elevated, special person and that. And then I saw Fakir Mahaprabhu with him, and I thought, well, this is very interesting, because Fakir Mahaprabhu was always respectful to everyone. He would go to the children, and with tears in his eyes, he would say, please bless me, please bless me. He was the most qualified person in so many ways, and he's old enough to be their great-grandfather, but with sincerity, he would say, please bless me. And when he was so respectful with the sannyasis. So I was curious, what's he going to be like with this sannyasi? And he was traveling in the vehicle with him. And later I saw their interactions. It's like Fakir Mahaprabhu was just ignoring him. And not in a rude way. You're married, so you know what it means to ignore someone in a rude way. That happens sometimes in marriage. You just don't answer the other person, you just turn your head away from them and whatever. That's a kind of rude ignoring. Your child may do that with you, angry with you, turns away, doesn't, I don't like you anymore, mother, because you wouldn't give me some candy or something. That's a kind of rude ignoring. But there's a polite one where it's just like, that person doesn't exist. I just keep away from them. And that's this particular person. I was very curious, because I felt personally, I can't judge, but I felt personally this person was doing some serious deviations to Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And I was very curious to see how Fakir Mahaprabhu would deal with him, and that was his way. So there's those two things. One is that we can try to see some good in them and think, well, he could have done even worse. They must be saintly, and try to see some good. And the second is, if we can't see any good, then we just keep some distance. Or maybe we say a little bit of good, but still we keep some distance. Just like, again, the child. You're a mother, you love your child, but you can't be, nobody can be with a child 24/7, 365. You want to write some poetry. There he is. You want to write some poetry or something. He has to go to his father sometimes, isn't it? Because everybody, even a mother, the mother's the most tolerant person in the world, but even a mother needs a break sometimes. The little boy's really growing. Is that helpful, Shri Prema?
But thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much. But also, if what it means not to be blind, and it is offensive to speak about this with others, it's better not to speak, just to decide that I, in example, keep distance, or it's normal to speak about this.
Well, first of all, that's a good question. What does it mean to not be blind? Well, we say, Agyana Timirandasha, I'm blind. So this is how we approach Guru. But blindness doesn't mean stupidity. Blindness means that I'm coming to Guru and Gyananjana Shalakaya. I'm asking for the Shalakaya, the Ayurvedic stick of medicine, of Gyan, of knowledge. So that's the first thing that I get. Now, for me to go and say, that Ishvari Prema, I don't trust her. I think she's like this. I think her real mood is like this or that. It's complete nonsense. I'm speculating. And let me just say, don't mind anybody, but sometimes women are good at that. They you don't love me anymore. They'll start crying all of a sudden, and the poor husband's like, what did I do? Sometimes we're a little over imaginative. Sometimes ladies do that, at least my wife. That's there. Children are like that sometimes, but we don't have adhikar for that because I can't see your heart. But I can see through the light of Gyan, Gyana Chakshush. And if I see that this person is doing something, their behavior is not according to Shastra, they're exploiting, they're abusing devotees subtly or grossly in a way that's against Shastra. And I can see probably there's some motivations. I mean, they're like a child. They're standing in the shower. They're going to get clean. So I tolerate them and I encourage the child. I don't hate the child or make fun of the child because the child falls down when he's 6 months old and is trying to walk. I don't make fun of the child for that. I tolerate it. But at the same time, I understand where that person's at. And I can tolerate it, and I love them for Srila Prabhupada and for the purpose of this mission. But at the same time, in my own little sangha, I may choose not to hang out so much with that person. We heard about some devotees told us that there was a problem situation like that, where all the devotees in the community pretty much wanted to get away from the manager. The manager was just like in English is the word despot. Means that he's a real controller, heavy, kind of crazy person. So they would come together and have programs of devotees together, and it was very sweet. And they would just read and do bhajan and things. And then the manager found out about that. And so the manager came to the programs. And being a big controller, he wanted to start controlling the programs. And he started telling everybody, we should talk more about services and management and how we're going to organize this and that. And he was coming to the programs, whereas before it was just hearing and chanting and revealing their hearts. And it was very sweet and intimate. Devotees were in ecstasy. There's no man. Then all of a sudden the manager came and started telling him, we just think about service and how we're going to maintain the deities and who's going to cook the Sunday feast and who's going to do the deity service and this and this. And the devotees had told me it destroyed those programs. Devotees just finally stopped coming. Whereas before it was so successful, everybody was in ecstasy. When it was Harikatha, that management thing just really spoiled it. So like that, we had to be careful. We don't want to offend anyone. And I appreciate managers. Being a mother is a manager. You're managing a little baby. And it's an important role. And you deserve respect. If the child doesn't respect the mother, how can the child grow up properly? It's important. The respect is so important. It's important that we respect the managers. They have that role. But I respect you for management reasons, but I respect someone for spiritual reasons when I see some reason for giving that respect. And that's a much higher thing for me. Otherwise, I just give respect to everybody according to, you're a mother, I should respect you. You're a poet, I should respect you. You're the temple president of this, I respect you for that. Doesn't mean that I necessarily want to hear class from you. It doesn't mean that I necessarily want to reveal my heart to you or take instructions from you or initiation or something. Is that helpful?
Yes,
It's
thank you
just a
so much.
question of maturity. That's really what it is. Okay. Anybody else with anything
Yes.
want to share? It's getting a little late.
Like to
Bonitai Prabhu. You somehow you sitting. You look like Madhvacharya, I think, saffron and like that.
I don't have any other clothes. And here in Mayapur is very practical.
Yeah.
So I would like to mention one topic which I just read in the Navadvip Mahatmya from Bhakti Thakur. I'm not sure the translation is correct or not, but here Bhakti Thakur mentioned that when Sriman Mahaprabhu was meditating what to do in Kali Yuga, and then he introduced the Hare Krishna Mahamantra to chant in Sankirtan. But there he mentions something which is like that. According to the magnitude of the chanting of my names, the influence of Kali Yuga will be subdued. Because before that, he is mentioning that the Kali Yuga is destroying the devotees, destroying the living entities. And it's very serious. So we have to introduce the most powerful medicine. But here we see something which we generally don't consider too seriously, that devotees, we are living in a place where Kali is quite advanced. And Kali can affect us, our mind, or intelligence, or our heart. And then we chant Hare Krishna, but we are under the influence of Kali, and then we become like criticizing others. It's one of the Kali's influence. So I see here that if you consider this sentence, that if you don't chant on high magnitude of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, you will be influenced, partly or fully. So, and I feel that I am living alone here, so it's depend on me when I go to the temple or not. But also it will affect my chanting, my consciousness. If I don't go to place where I chant loudly, full-heartedly, for hours with devotees, then I will be affected with Kali Yuga. And I will be morose, I will be criticizing in my mind. Or if I don't chant loudly, and when you go to the temple and you start to chant loudly, 5 minutes later, hey, Prabhu, please, quietly. So what is your understanding, how to understand this, how to follow, how to protect ourselves from Kali if you are not allowed to chant loudly? Or habitually we don't chant.
Mm-hmm. Srila Prabhupada, sometimes devotees would come and they'd start chanting loudly in the same room with him. I've heard this from a few devotees. And Prabhupada would chastise them, say, don't chant so loudly. And I also heard from I think it was Harisari Prabhu, that when Prabhupada had some difficulties in the society, one of his sannyasi leaders fell down or there's some scandal or something, that in his japa, Prabhupada would chant more loudly. He noticed that as a regular thing. Prabhupada would chant loudly when there was some difficulty. But in general, when we're with other devotees, it's not so polite. But one thing that's important, I think, to note, Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings in one song, Ayota Eka Kala Chela, Tilak Napi Kuntimala. He says that here's a Kali Chela, here's a servant of Kali, and he's wearing Tilak and Kuntimala, and he's chanting the holy names. So just because someone's chanting doesn't necessarily mean that I want to associate with their kirtan. I want to encourage kirtan everywhere, because even Nama-parada yuktanam namanyeva haranchigam, it's said in the Padma Purana, that even if you're chanting with offense, your offenses will go away if you keep chanting. But it doesn't mean that I want to be around kirtan where people are doing it just for some musical performance, or people are doing kirtan or chanting to become famous or something. But that chanting will drive out the dog of Kali if it's done properly. But if it's done in a weak way, if we're Ayata Eka Kali Chela, we're a Kali Chela, then it's not very strong. Some effect is there, but even it may influence us. We may pick up more on the fragrance of pratista, of fame and prestige and things from that kirtan. And it may act in a way which is not so favorable for us. Overall, the chanting should just go on, and just we should just keep chanting. Kali Kukur Karanjari Chawahe, Kali Yuga Pavana, Kali Boyanasana, Sri Satchinandana Gawahe. Bhaktivinoda sings in one song that Mahaprabhu came to drive out the dog of Kali, and he took the stick of the holy name. Just like in Mayapur, sometimes you have dogs, street dogs come, and you have coyotes around where you're at, and you want, or jackals, you want to take a stick with you all the time. I used to always walk with a stick when I'd go on the roads and things around there. So that stick is the holy name, but it should be chanted nicely. And as we were saying, that in the beginning with children, anybody's chanting, that's good, any kind of chanting. But as we become a little more mature, then we want to chant with Gurudev. Then we want to chant with devotees who are serious. And we want to, Srila Prabhupada didn't like it when devotees did kirtan just for musical performance. Although at the same time, Srila Bhakti-siddhanta said, and sometimes I see here in Hungary too, they put on some musical performance of the kirtan. And Srila Bhakti-siddhanta said that we should put on such programs to attract the outside people. They're not attracted by the holy name, but they'll be attracted by the expert piano playing or saxophone or whatever it is. And that's okay. Let them come for that. And we're tricking them with getting the holy name. But when I'm in such a kirtan, and there's a lot of emphasis on the saxophone or the djembe drums or this or that, I personally don't feel so inspired. I'd rather just be in a very clumsy kirtan that's not very musical, but it's really from the heart. That's my personal feeling. Is that helpful?
Yeah, we have to meditate on that, have to learn to chant from the heart, not necessarily in loud voice, but full-heartedly.
I really
think that is the
appreciate,
main point.
I've been thinking a lot about the time it takes to chant. And I used to chant japa. I used to chant one round in like 6 or 7 minutes. Nowadays, I'm spending 10 minutes on each round. And I was feeling a little uncomfortable. And Satchinanda Maharaj commented to me sometime recently that he spends about 10 minutes per round. And my old friend Kushakrata Prabhu, he used to spend about 10 minutes or more per round, because he was really, really trying to focus on the holy name. Now, some people can chant faster. That's an individual thing, but it's not that Bhaktivinoda says in some places in Harinam Chintamani that we shouldn't try to just chant faster. And I see that a lot of times with devotees. We want to just try to chant really, really fast. The main thing is that we hear and we become absorbed. Mano-madhyestuto mantra, our mind and the mantra become one. Okay?
And I have a question. One short question is that we're supposed to chant all the day. And I asked that what you do when you realize that, or maybe you are shopping or you are going some place and then you don't remember, you don't chant. So how you remind yourself that, okay, I have to chant? Also maybe in the mind, or then you go to shopping, but
that's when you should chant really loudly. When you're going in the checkout line at Lidl's, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. That's when you should chant loud. No. I can't remember, but I remember was giving some classes. He was so wonderful. He always spoke about the holy name. I just loved it so much. And one comment that he was making, Kirtaniya Sadahari, when he was speaking about this, that we should always chant. And he was saying we should chant while we sleep. We should chant while you eat. And Bhakti Rupa would raise and said, should we chant while we're typing and working on the computer? And Fakimu said, yes. And Bhakti Rupa was like, how can I, when I'm writing or something, how can I be chanting? And I have I guess maybe it's even a little bit of experience, but it's more of a theory and a little experience perhaps in this regard. And that is, as you were saying, when we become really absorbed in our chanting, then I find that when I put the beads down, the chanting keeps going. It's just a constant thing. It's just always there. And sometimes if it stops, then we should remember it again. I remember once my grandmother was speaking with him. He was talking about his mother. It's the only time I remember him ever talking about his mother. And his mother was raised in a family of Paramahansa Vaishnavas in Giri. She was a very special person. From childhood, she was worshiping the deities of Radha Gopal Ju and doing Hare Krishna Kirtan. And she was on, and Guru Maharaj commented that she was always chanting. He said when he was a child, he saw this in his mother. She was just always Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. She was just always chanting. And then he said, and one day she forgot to chant. And Jagadish Pandit Prabhu was there, my godbrother. He said, what happened then, Guru Maharaj? Guru Maharaj said, Krishna kicked her. What that means, I don't know, but your comment reminds me of that. It's not such an easy thing. When we're at the supermarket, you're fortunate in Mayapur, you don't have what I call stupor markets. You go into a stupor, you become, they have the terrible music and all those nonsense things. You don't have to tolerate that. You can go to a market where actually real people grow those vegetables, or at least they're a middleman person, but still they're more like a real person than just some employee kind of thing. But even in that stupor market, we can always be chanting wherever we're at. And that chanting is a very beautiful thing. Just close your eyes. Don't, if you can, don't fall over. But just ignore what's going on around you and just be absorbed all the time in the holy name. Sometimes we come a little close to that. Maybe we should just keep trying. That's my thought. And the more absorbed we get in our personal japa, the better it'll be. Anybody else have any reflections on that? How you can always chant?
Well,
Leela, you want to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to fulfill Gornitai Prabhu's request earlier in the chant. I found for myself really eye-opener this conception of not like not having the that conception that I create the holy name, like Kartitva Abhiman to your chanting. And I have it connected with this strong statement of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati that he would like to, he would prefer to be locked in a cage with a lion surrounded by fires to have the association of someone who takes his beads into the hands as if it would be the reins of a horse.
All
So
right, Leela Purushottam, you said it. Now, if Dorothy's going to paste in her quote, you got to paste in your quote. That's a great quote, okay?
But I don't have it but you found it last time. I put it to you last time, and you found it very quick in your computer.
All right. So tell me a word or two from it again. I'll look
Well,
it up real quick.
reins of the horse.
Okay, reins of the horse.
Probably if you filter it for Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, you'll get it.
I don't find it. I found reins. Let's see here. Nope.
So then say, like something lock in the cage with a tiger or something like that.
Don't find it either. Anyway, we can look later.
So in contemplation of that, for in relationship to my chanting, it really helps me. It naturally stimulates the humility, because on the other levels, still being identified with so many features of my false ego, it might be very artificial to pretend, oh, I'm so humble, I'm so humble. If at least I can accept that it's not me who is creating the holy name, who is, like, but that rather it naturally stimulates the prayerful mood that please, my Lord, I want to serve you in your form of the holy name. And if you kindly can be present to my attention or something, then it really helps me to evoke that feeling of humility, that I'm dependent on the holy name, not that I'm the doer, I will now. And then if what I found difficult actually in that regard, like on a daily practice basis, is that I found the risk that it might make you lazy in your endeavors. Like, I'm not Karta, so what's the use of trying to focus on the holy name? I'm anyway not, in that sense. So that's the other side of kind of a danger of balancing those two. That's why that's part of a comment, but I wanted to ask you if you could share your thoughts on how to blend these two things, like really deeply contemplate that I want to be under the control of the holy name, not thinking with the conception I'm controlling the holy name, I'm producing it with my moving the tongue and anything, but yet being karta in that sense of controlling my approach to the endeavor, my approach to trying to pronounce properly, trying to bring the mind back, if like having a good quality chanting. So how to blend these two? Oh, it seems that
reminds me of a couple of things. One is our probably our mutual friend Madhav Prabhu, the Kirtaniya follower of Ayendra Prabhu. He once told me that when he does kirtan, he has to come to the point where we let the name come out on its own. Not that I'm controlling the name, not that I'm producing the name. Like we have those machines, the Prabhupada Japa machines or bhajan machines, and you plug it in. I plugged it in, I turned it on. I'm the source of the holy name. But Golakera Prema-bhakti-candrika, Harinama Sankirtan, the holy name descends, and the holy name is Swarat. It's independent. And it may appear, it may not appear, up to the holy name. And we let the holy name do us. And therefore, Rupa Goswami in his Namastakam also, he prays that may my dear name, Krishna, may you please appear in my tongue. Not that I'm telling the holy name now, look, this is your job today. It's 4:00 in the afternoon. We're doing Harinam. Come on, Nam. You're supposed to do your thing. It reminds me of a Sankirtan leader some years ago I had in like 1982 or something, who one day was chastising some devotees who had a hard time out on Sankirtan, on Bhukta Shibir. And when they came back and they said, oh, what has happened? He said, you should have phoned me. I would have talked to you, and then you would have been in ecstasy after hearing from me. And then you would have gone and done so well. And I remember being very, although that's the opposite kind of attitude, that this is my job. I'm going to put you in ecstasy, like it's a button that I can press and turn on and off. And that's one thing that's distressed to me sometimes. I found amongst some of my friends who have advocated book distribution, for example. It's something I've always advocated. Prabhupada wanted us to do that. It's a very important part of our movement. But I remember one of the biggest preachers of book distribution in a seminar he was giving, and he was kind of a peer of mine. He's initiated by one of Prabhupada's disciples. And he was speaking about how he said, you just chant good japa, go to the full morning program, and you're going to have a great day. You're going to have an ecstatic day. And I was a little disturbed by that because it's just not true. Sometimes I've chanted really good rounds, or what seems like good rounds to me anyway. What is a good round? That's another question. But seemingly attentive rounds all at once. And I've gone to the full morning program, and I had a lousy day. And people abused me. I was depressed. I was mental. I was this and that. Because it's not that Krishna is, or we're just going to press a button and now Krishna, you have to come. You have to. I chanted good rounds this morning, Krishna, so you have to give me this result. It's nonsense. Gornitai Prabhu, you want to add something?
The verse of we start with Utsaha Nishchandarya. That's reflect to that. If you keep these three together, that we chant with Utsaha, we really create enthusiasm in convention, or understanding what we do. And Darya means waiting for the holy name when it appears. If you can keep these three together, which is not easy, I think that could be hard.
That sounds great. Yeah, for me the dilemma is how to blend this cultivation of not being a karta in relationship to the holy name, but yet being inspired constantly, day by day, to properly endeavor for good chanting, but without contaminating it with that misunderstanding that we will produce the holy name. That's like a balance that I'm looking for.
Like the rock group Queen used to sing, we will rock you. Right? So like I'm going to do something. I personally like when I chant, sometimes I chant with the prayer that look, I can't even chant. I can't chant attentively. I can't do anything. I'm just so weak. I'm just so small. I'm so fallen. I'm so bad. But please, please help me. And for me, I always, I never want to separate the holy name from my Guru Maharaj. Just like we don't want to separate Krishna from Guru. And so I like to chant in front of a picture of my Guru Maharaj, and I pray to him that please, Gurudev, please help me. And we have those prayers we shared with the devotees some time back. I recite every day the prayer to all the gurus and all the Vaishnavas. Please bless me that my mind won't go here and there. I can be focused on the holy name. We can't. We're so tiny. We're so insignificant. We can't even do anything right. And so if we're constantly absorbed like that, or when we go to sit down and give a class, or we go out in Harinam or whatever, if we think that we pray to Gurudev, I can't do this. I'm just a really nasty conditioned soul. Please, please, let me do something to please you. Please, you take over and you let me remember you, let me remember Krishna, and you do something. And when we pray like that, then amazing things happen. Beautiful things happen. There's a problem in scholarship. Scholarship's very impressive. If you know Sanskrit and you know the rules of Sanskrit and this and that, especially if you're a Sanskrit poet, it's very, very amazing and impressive. But the danger is we start becoming impressed with ourselves and what other people think of us, and we don't see ourselves in a fallen way. We can't cry out to Krishna.
Yeah, this is very helpful actually to think even about that second part, that our part of our endeavor to how you call it, like to do it as a prayer, still not as a doer, but because that's also my experience, that even if I want to be karta in that regard, I'm still failing terribly all the time. I can say, okay, now I will have good japa. Still,
Well, that's one of the things I love about book distribution, because you may have the biggest false ego in the world and think I'm the great controller and I'm such a great, and you go out of book distribution and Krishna just smashes the hell out of you. And you, oh my God. And then you realize I have to cry out to Krishna. It's really a beautiful, beautiful thing. Whereas anything else in Krishna consciousness, they'll say, wow, Prabhu, that was a great class. That was a great kirtan. You cooked a great feast. You're so advanced. But when you go out on the street and you meet non-devotees and someone, especially someone spits in your face, I've had that happen. Or I've had people attack me twice. I had people try to, once somebody punched me in the head, another time someone tried to kick me, a karate kick kind of thing. You know, it makes you see what a nonsense I am. Maybe I can impress some of the younger devotees, but when I'm out here, I can't impress anybody.
Yeah, and I want to thank you both, to Gonita Prabhu and to you both, because if one can also contemplate that part of our chanting as a prayer, then it also might have a power to reduce the kartitva abhiman in a proper way. Actually, that's my concern. Thank you so much.
I remember Mother Vaibhavi, Prabhupada's disciple, Charu Prabhu's wife, when I first joined. I haven't been around them in like over 30 years, but I would just see her. She's walking up the steps somewhere, and she's, what's she doing? What's she saying? I need to get a little closer. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama. She was just chanting all the time. Just always chanting. And it's, wow, it's such a special thing. Okay. Anybody else want to share anything? Otherwise, I think we should finish. It's been a really long session today. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say that Mataji Dorota, she posted that quote that you asked me into Pariprashna. Thank you.
Acha. Let's see. Oh, that's really good. Okay, so she paid double fees. So now
Yeah.
we'll have to consider, maybe we might kick Leela Purushottam because he didn't pay his fee, but Dorothy paid. She paid for you, so she can decide if you can stay or not. Is it okay, Dorothy, if Leela Purushottam stays in the
Yes,
group?
please stay, Prabhu.
Okay. All right. Okay, Orsi, you want to share something else? Go ahead.
It's I would share, but maybe privately if it's not offensive to the other devotees. Sorry.
Sure. But it had to be quick. I want to go
Yes.
after this. I have a few more rounds of chant things. Okay, so my thanks to everybody here. I'm not sure what's happening next week, because Snan Yatra is coming up and there's some classes and things. But as far as I know, we should be here next Wednesday. Should be the same thing, same time, same place, same personalities. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Thakur Narottam Prabhu ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhishcha kripa sindhu bheva champatitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.